Hello and welcome to another week. It's IB Nation Sports Talk. We're up and rolling on this Monday. He's Vince D'Addario. I'm Sean Stiers. I'm exhausted. I don't know about you, Vince. I'm wiped out after this weekend. It was so weird, first of all, having Notre Dame done by 3:30 and then having the rest of the day. You know, I still had some writing and stuff to do, but having the rest of the day to myself.
It's weird.
I know.
It was weird. We were done with the post-game show and a relatively good hour, and had the entire night slate to watch football and kind of get reacclimated with the football landscape and everything that was going on. It's nice, man. I am all for noon games, man, especially when it's an away game. I am all for it. Bring it on.
Well, and then had the game one of the World Series Friday night. I freaking fell asleep.
I'm sure you did.
A half inning before a grand slam. Like I'm working, and like I laid there in bed and fell asleep. So, by the way, there was a 10-year-old kid who caught Freeman's grand slam.
Okay.
He didn't know he was going to the game until he got there. His parents told him they were taking him to the dentist. Then they took him to the World Series.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
No, okay, I know the kid's 10 years old, but isn't it a night game? Like,
well, really? It's East Coast. I mean, it's like,
oh, that's true. It's West Coast
or West Coast. I mean,
West Coast,
yeah. So it's like 5 o'clock out there.
All right, fair enough. But
you probably have to leave your house at 2:30 or 3 o'clock to get there in LA traffic too. So
well, and they had the USC was playing at the same time. I think the Lakers were playing. So like there was a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, so that was probably tough sledding when it came to driving, but hey, that's a heck of a surprise for a kid. And then you get to catch the grand slam ball. Like
I know.
That's a pretty good day for that kid.
That's like a major investment. Like
I would hold on to that ball. I'm sorry, Freddie. Sorry, Baseball Hall of Fame. We're cashing this puppy in. Like,
big time.
This 10-year-old wants to go to college someday.
That's exactly right.
I'm serious. Like I'm all for, like, I used to be, when I was younger, I was like, give him the ball back, get a couple sign things, whatever.
Never.
No, that kid needs to go to college. Like, and give that kid a nest egg, give the parents a new house, whatever it happens to be. Like, you sell that puppy for every cent that you can get for it. That's what I would do.
By the way, speaking of a lot going on, today is the 31st ever Sports Equinox. Have you ever heard of this? The Sports Equinox?
No.
It's when all of the major sports have a game going on the same day. So you've got 8 NHL games, 11 NBA games. You've got Game 3 of the World Series tonight. You got Monday Night Football tonight. And there's even 2 MLS soccer playoff games. So that's only the 31st time it's ever happened.
Wow. That's actually a high number. Are you including MLS into that, or is it just the 4 majors?
I didn't dig this up.
Okay.
I saw there was like a graphic that I think ESPN or somebody tweeted. So
the MLS is like a throw-in my opinion.
But yeah, I kind of feel like that as well. The MLS has obviously not been around that long. There's probably been like 3 of them that have included the MLS, would be my guess.
Right.
By the way, we've got a new friend of the show that I'm going to introduce tonight.
I'm excited.
It's called MyBookie. If you know football and you love to win, like as in you love to win some money, MyBookie is perfect for you. I mean, you should check them out. And when you do, we've got a special code that you can use. It's Irish. Fairly simple to remember, I think. Irish, IRISH. And that'll double your bankroll with 100% deposit bonus. So if you bet with MyBookie, you can get even more with MyBookie Plus because they've got a loyalty rewards program and it gives you more plays, more wins, more cash in your account, and no strings attached as well with MyBookie Plus. So, and a little pro tip for you, by the way, as well. Notice this trend going right now. The NFL teams with the top offensive lines, like the ones that move you, they're dominating the run game this year. And betting those games, bet the under on those games. It's been printing money this season. So check out MyBookie. the sports book that gives you control and rewards every moment of play. New friend of the show here at Irish Breakdown. Glad to have him aboard.
I love new friends.
I do too.
I'm always in the market for some new friends, and I have a feeling that you and I will both be
checking out my bookie
and referring to our new friend on quite a frequent basis. I just have a feeling that might happen.
It's probably a pretty solid bet.
Yeah,
I think you would say.
Yep.
Well, let's get to the game. Got some Marcus Freeman audio that we're going to play, some cuts from after the game. Of course, it didn't come from today. No Monday press conference today. All the comments that you'll hear came from his post-game press conference Saturday after Notre Dame's 51-14 trouncing of Navy. They took the ball first and they go right downfield, 75-yard drive, 9 plays, score a touchdown, and then, of course, Navy fumbles for the first time this season. And all of a sudden, it's a 14-0 Notre Dame lead. Here's Marcus Freeman on the fast start.
I tell you this every week. Those are outcomes. Those are observations. Like a fast start starts with a fast first play and a fast second play. And everybody evaluates. I told the team based off flows, the flow of a season, the flow of a game. We can't look at this thing based off flows. We got to look at this as one game, one life, one play, one life. And that's what I continue to preach to those guys. So the result of how we started fast was we executed on that play early in the game. And then as you look back at it, you say, okay, hey, yeah, that was a fast start. But more importantly, it's just a mindset, like win this play. It's the only thing that matters.
Marcus Freeman was I didn't get to see the video. I know he was very demonstrative during his 11, 12 minutes that he was doing his post game. You could hear some of the pounding and there was some, the papers crumpling and stuff. And I edited out as much as I could, not just this cut, but all the cuts in general. There was a lot of, just smacking the table with his hand and that kind of stuff afterwards. I thought it was kind of funny. I mean, it wasn't really funny when I was trying to edit it, for use, but.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's not usually like him. He's usually pretty reserved about everything. And I kind of like it. Kind of like seeing it. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, look, it was a big win. And it's usually after a definitive win like that, the emotions are pretty much done by the time you get to the end of the game. You know what I mean? Because, look, that game was over at halftime, essentially. So you've got time. Okay, we got to get the twos in. We got to do, you know what I mean? So, the emotion usually wears off by the time the game is over when it's a game that goes like that. Mm-hmm. He still had it. I think I like the fact that he was still kind of fired up about that win. I mean, look, the surface fans out there, the surface national media, it was Navy, it doesn't matter. But those are the same people that picked Navy to win that game. So, I think they felt a little bit disrespected. I think they felt a little bit, on edge about the fact of who they are. Notre Dame is what I'm talking about, obviously, and Marcus Freeman being the guy in the head chair. I think he's a little upset. He's like, look, man, we went out there and we did what we needed to do. And he was emotional about it. I like it.
I mean, look, we knew they weren't going to get a ton of credit, but at the same time, they did move up in the rankings.
We're going to talk about that.
We'll get into that in rapid fire. That's actually, for those who are sitting here in the show waiting for us to start tonight, going, where are these guys? We were having a futures possibilities when it came to playoffs. Not quite as heated as our discussion last week when we were going at it, but
it's going to be I'll just say this. I love having these arguments. I love having these debates. And I think this year of all years, it is so wide open. There is no dominant team in college football.
Well, and look, somebody asked last week, is this the perfect year to begin the 12-team playoff? And I don't think you could have asked for a better year for it. Because, could you imagine if it was only a 4-team playoff this year?
There would be a lot of upset people about not getting into the playoff, right?
Oh, my goodness.
Look, there's going to be 10 teams that have a legitimate shot of winning the national championship, I think, when it's all said and done. Just based on resume, based on what they've done. And look, if you're a Notre Dame fan, I just don't think you can legitimately be scared of any team in the country. And I'm not saying that Notre Dame's going to win all of those games, but I'm saying
every game should be
fair.
a pretty even matchup.
Right.
For the most part.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Like you should feel, after watching Notre Dame in the last 6 weeks, you should feel like you can play with any of those teams.
Because look, like Oregon is deservedly number one. They beat Ohio State. Texas is lost. They're undefeated. But like watching that game, I didn't feel like, man, I'm watching the two best teams in the country right now. I felt like I was watching two pretty good teams.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel like I was watching two dominant teams go at it by any means.
All these teams have flaws. All of them. You know, 1 through whatever. They all have flaws. And, you know, I guess if you're a Notre Dame fan, you hope that some of those flaws are realized so that you can continue to move up and like that kind of thing. But look, as far as I'm concerned, as long as Notre Dame gets in, they got a shot. They got a shot.
Yeah.
You know, it won't be,
sure.
it might, you know, there's certain roads that would be easier than others and, you know, that kind of thing. And I totally agree with that. Because if you look at the AP poll right now, I sent you the thing. You know, if you look at the AP poll, the way
I feel like we should have just made this whole show about the playoff because you came in hot, you know, like again in the backstage, like you were ready to talk about this stuff.
I know I should. I gotta cool my jets, but like I don't like the path that Notre Dame would have to take if you just took the AP poll as it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not impossible by any stretch of the imagination. You know what I mean? It's not impossible. I just don't like it.
Beezer 12 washing beard. You did see a lot of this. He says the worst thing I keep seeing on the socials is this version of Texas A&M beats Notre Dame. He says, what about this version of Notre Dame?
That's
casuals. And I mean, it's a fair point. Like,
Texas
A&M fans make a perfectly fair point. Texas A&M is a different team now, but so is Notre Dame. You know, like
I feel pretty good about if Notre Dame played Northern Illinois again too. So
yeah,
you can't change what's in the past. I guess that's the best way to put it.
And it's football. You get one chance unless you get a rematch in the playoff or a conference championship game. And obviously Notre Dame's not in the conference. So there's never going to be any rematches. They're not in the same conference with A&M.
Correct.
You get one shot. It's not basketball. You get one shot. They lost. So it doesn't matter what would happen right now. The committee could say, well, because we've even like, you remember a few years ago when Michigan State beat Michigan in the head-to-head, but then the rankings came out 2 weeks later and they had Michigan ahead of Michigan State because they were like, we just feel like Michigan's a better team. You know? So it's not out of the realm of possibility that the committee could see it that way as well. But I mean, let's save that for.
I was going to say we got a lot to dig into. But we got rapid fire questions that kind of hit that, so I don't want to, you know, preempt it.
That's right. So fast start, and part of the fast start, of course, was Navy turnovers.
We wanted aggressive mindset defensively. Like, I don't want to play football. You know that. You hear me say it all the time. I don't want to play football. I want to be aggressive and violent on defense. But probably more of the emphasis was on offense because of the turnovers and fumbles they were creating on defense. And that's probably what I'm most proud of, right? It's like we put a huge emphasis on our scout team every time there's a ball carrier, try to knock it out. And to have 0 balls on the ground versus that defense is huge, huge.
Yeah, and Vince, I mean, it is true that Notre Dame didn't force those 5 fumbles as much as Navy coughed up those fumbles. Notre Dame did recover them, but they hadn't turned it over. They hadn't fumbled in their first 6 games, you know. So like, how do you look at it? Because I feel that there's still a discontent in some Irish fan circles coming out of Saturday's game, even though they won 51-14.
Well, those are just the people that you just can't please if anybody's not happy with the way things went in that game. I mean, I don't even know what else to say. The starting offense played a half and a series, and you won 51-14. Like, what else do you freaking want?
Right.
But anyway, I
kind of like Purdue. Kind of like Purdue.
Yeah, exactly. Like, come on. But I guess my point would be, because you're asking about the turnovers and all of that, and you know, this is where your shirt comes into play. The one that says stats.
Stats are for losers.
Losers. There you go. I always want to say
you keep saying idiots. I've never called anyone an idiot.
I do. I call people idiots all the time.
Maybe that's why it's in your head.
By the way, we're both wearing Cub shirts today. Just want to throw that out there.
Oh, nice. That's true. Okay, now I can see it. Yeah.
But no. Yes. Did Notre Dame physically force those fumbles? No. But just the presence of Notre Dame is what forced those fumbles. Like that's the fastest, most athletic defense that Navy has ever seen this season. Like, and it's not even a close comparison. And while they weren't like knocking the ball out and they were around the football every time one of those fumbles occurred and were able to fall on it and all of those, like they forced it just with their presence. You know what I mean? And I think that's where people don't understand it. Like, well, Notre Dame had nothing to do with the fact that that Navy just coughed up all those turnovers. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Because they had to hurry up the operation, and that causes fumbles.
What are the two things you say about Army and Navy or, any of the service academies when you get ready to play them every year? They're going to play hard and they're disciplined and not turning the ball over. That goes to
absolutely
discipline. And Navy had been the fact that they hadn't fumbled at all and only had 2 interceptions shows the discipline that they have played with. But the nerves obviously got to them.
Absolutely.
Like watching now you can say, Horvath's thumb or, how much of that came into it, like he didn't make his thumb didn't make the fullback fumble or,
right,
any of that
exactly.
kind of stuff.
Those are all excuses, man.
I think so as well. I think so as well. And Notre Dame capitalized on them. And that's the other part of it. It's like, okay, it's one thing to recover it, just getting there because, there have been some loose balls that Notre Dame hasn't gotten to this season. They recovered them and they capitalized on them. And that's 100%. The key to this whole thing.
Look, I think people forget about the fact that Navy came into this game with everything to lose, essentially. They were ranked. They're undefeated. They have a chance to slay the giant in Notre Dame. It's their home game in an NFL stadium. All of these things, like they were riding high. They had all the momentum coming into this game, and they were pressing. They were pressing. They were tight. They didn't handle the pressure very well from a football standpoint. Now, I realize these guys are going to be going off and doing their thing in the armed forces, and they like stress is nothing to those guys. I like that's different than a football game stress. You know what I mean? Like they were pressing in this game offensively, especially, and they made mistakes. That's what happens when you are pressing and you're tight and you're going into it like we can't make a mistake. We can't make a mistake. Guess what you do? You make a mistake. And they haven't had that kind of pressure all season because when you look at the opponents that they played, they can play loose. They can just be themselves. They can let the scheme take care of itself and their athleticism and all of those things. That wasn't going to work against Notre Dame. They had to be scheme sound and they couldn't turn the ball over in order to hang with Notre Dame in this game. And it didn't happen. And then you've been there. Like once you make a couple of mistakes and they just start compounding on each other. And that's what happened for Navy. I mean, they couldn't feel the punt. They couldn't feel the kickoff. They're fumbling the football. I mean, they had 7 fumbles in this game. Notre Dame recovered 5. They had 7 times the ball was on the ground. Like, you're not going to win games doing that. You're just not. And then again, like you said, Notre Dame took complete advantage of it. They said, okay, well, you're going to turn the ball over. We're going to punch it in, and we're going to make this thing over before it starts.
Yeah.
And so it just compounded, and it was just ugly.
And I think that those things kind of fed off each other as well. The fast start that Notre Dame got out to after 4 straight games, they had played from behind. They take the ball again. They score with the opening, after getting the opening kickoff and then, the fumble, they go back down and score again because Navy was out near midfield. They were moving the ball on that first drive before the fumble. But then, again, 14-0 when you're up on that option. Man, that's such a big advantage.
And, you got to give credit to Notre Dame, too, because then Navy goes down and they score, to make it 14-7. And what does Notre Dame do? A 3-play drive. They score again. And at that point, that was the backbreaker. That was really the turning point in the whole game. It's like, okay, well, Navy can climb back in here, but, possibly. And Notre Dame's like, no, not today. That's not going to happen.
Well, look, like we talked about last week, Navy basically plays 2 offenses. They've got their traditional wing T look, and they run their stuff out of shotgun. And Freeman talked a little bit about preparing for all of that defensively.
I mean, in the past, you've had a completely different defense when you played a triple option team. But when they get into the gun, it's similar to what things you see week in and week out. And so we had to have the ability to, with the same personnel, play triple option defense. And then when they go to gun, be able to play some of the normal defense that we've had. And they still did a good job. I'm talking about Navy. They still did a good job. But Coach Golden had a wonderful game plan. 14 points is too much for greedy people like us, but they did a heck of a job versus an offense that hasn't been stopped much this year.
14 points is too much. We're all greedy.
Hey, you don't go into a defensive game plan being like, well, if we give up 14, we're okay. Like,
yeah,
you give up 0, man. Like, yeah,
exactly. I don't know, Vince. I was told that Navy doesn't run the option though anymore. So
yeah, they never did.
No.
I don't know what team people are watching going into that game, but yeah, they're an option football team, guys. Like, when things started getting dangerous for Navy and they had to get back in the game, what did
they went back to their comfort zone.
Like, come on, people.
I mean, that's what he tried to. Newberry tried to settle him down, I think, by doing that. There was no way you were actually going to come back trying to run that. But I mean, look at the 47-yard touchdown run that Horvath ran. It was out of shotgun, but what does he do? It was an option play. He fakes the dive. He keeps it himself. He's rolling to his right. He's got one of his slot backs, like 3 yards away from him as the pitch option. And then what happens? Jaden Osbury gets over there, and he's caught in no man's land because Jack Kaiser's trying to come over. Kaiser's supposed to have the quarterback, but Kaiser gets blocked by the fullback. So Osbury's out there trying to play both the quarterback and the running back. And, it's like literally you can't play both. He was trying to hedge both ways. There's just no way you can do it. And then Horvath just made plays out there in space. It was just classic option. It just happened to be run from the shotgun.
Yeah, 100%. Like that, and that's what we try to tell people going in. They're like, no, this is a shotgun team. I don't know what you guys are talking about. They throw the ball all over the field.
Yeah.
For Navy, yes, they throw the ball all over the field for Navy. But did you see how effective that was in this game? They had 88 yards of passing.
Season low, by the way. Season low, 88.
Like, this is a team that when they're up big or when they are overmatching the defense, yeah, they can throw the football, and it's great. And it probably messes with a lot of defenses the way that they go from the tight, wing T formation and they shift out to the shotgun and all of those different things. Notre Dame had a great plan for it. And what else they had? Superior athletes on the other side with a really good plan on how to defeat that.
Exactly. Second year in a row, Jalen Sneed out there playing against the option. 9 tackles. Sneed and Kaiser, 9 tackles each. Adon Schuler and Junior Tuialamaka with 7 tackles each. So just across the board, a lot of good consistent play.
I love the fact that they can kind of dip into the depth chart when it comes to playing these teams and, find guys that fit the mold of what they want to do against a triple option team. And then they just do it. I mean, obviously Notre Dame ran a 4-3 in this game. They haven't run a 4-3 in I don't know how long. You know what I mean? They ran a 4-3. They weren't blitzing. They weren't doing any of that. They were just reacting. They had jobs to do, and they were just so fast with what they were doing that it looked like at times they were blitzing and that they were doing some different things, but they were just running a 4-3. That was it. And you could split out your linebackers and cover a slot back and do the different things that they wanted. Like Jordan Clark didn't even see the field hardly in this game. You know what I mean? Because they didn't need him.
Yeah.
Like Brian made a really good point last night, and upon further review, they actually got younger with this defense by taking out Jordan Clark. And who else did they take out? They took out another 60-year guy in this game as well. They got younger and were still explosive and a very, very good defense.
Hurt.
It was
Hurt played a little bit, but
right.
It would probably be him. Yeah.
But they actually got younger. It's just impressive.
I know. And it's just that much more scary, I guess, when you think about how good this defense is. Here's more from Freeman about the defense.
I mean, this is a challenging offense that, as you look at last year and this year, obviously there's more gun, but there's a lot more smoke and mirrors. There's a lot of stuff going on pre-snap that you have to play with clarity. You have to play with clear eyes, and that was a big point of emphasis. And for the most part, not the entire game. There's plays we didn't play with great eyes, and we got exposed. But for the most part, We play with clear eyes, and it's important to not let some of those motions and smoke and mirrors really affect where your eyes should be.
What did you think, Vince? Were you happy with the defensive performance? Were you unimpressed with the defensive performance? What did you think?
Well, what I got out of that quote is that Marcus Freeman watched Friday Night Lights because
clear eyes, full hearts.
Yeah, clearly. But anyway, for the most part, yes, I was impressed with the way the defense played. I mean, again, it showed like the defensive front kept Navy's front from getting to the second level, allowed those guys to really scrape and be, fast downhill and get to their assignments. And, there were some missed tackles. There were some missed assignments. I mean, you don't have a 47-yard run and a 60-yard run if you're hitting your assignments and hitting your tackles, right? I mean, there's probably 5 plays or so where Notre Dame didn't do what they were supposed to do out of 60. You know what I mean? So the vast majority of the time, they did a really good job. That's my point.
And look, I can forgive it because it's Navy. Now you're going to play Army again, but again, not again. You're going to play Army, another
same
offense team,
again,
different kind of. Yeah, I mean, same basic tenets to the offense. So I think this should help when you're facing Army. But again, it's like other than that, you're not going to see this offense the rest of the year. So I can forgive some of those. Just like what I was talking about with Jaden Osbury. Most quarterbacks aren't going to take off 47 yards for a touchdown. But when you're running option out of it and you're as good and athletic as Horvath is, you're going to make some plays now and then. I did find it interesting that Horvath had almost half of their yards, 222 yards. Notre Dame did hold them, by the way, below their rushing average. He hit those 2 long runs that were almost half of their 222 yards. The other 41 carries, only 2.8 per carry.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty good,
And the fullback didn't hurt him at all,
right.
And that's, again, the number one tenet to defense when you're going up against a triple option is you got to stop the fullback. They clearly did that. And the quarterback had 129 yards, I want to say, on the ground, and 107 of them came on 2 plays. You know what I mean? Not look, right. You can't give up those plays. I mean, that's still not good. You can't give up those 2 plays. But outside of those 2 plays, like, they shut this team down. You know what I mean? They just didn't really have it offensively against this defense. And you can say, well, they just kept turning the ball over and blah, 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 blah. But again, that was the defense. I mean, that the defense forced those fumbles, just by being there and doing what they were doing. And, some of those were special teams fumbles. The freaking defensive end in Logan Thomas was the first one down on kickoffs. You see that engine coming towards you, that locomotive coming at you, you might drop a ball too. You know what I mean? Like, that's, Notre Dame just has dudes that are coming at you at full speed. You're going to make mistakes.
I had a story this weekend about the defense, and I do think it's interesting that Notre Dame's run defense ranks number 42, which, like when you look at some of their national rankings, that's pretty much the lowest of their rankings. But they've held every team to under, their rushing average when they've played them this season.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they've played 3 teams that are in the top 22 in rushing offense, and Georgia Tech is number 50. So Navy ranks number 4, Texas A&M ranks number 9, Northern Illinois number 22, Georgia Tech number 50. They've held all of those teams to an average of 62.3 yards under their season totals for the season. So
that's all you can ask for, because Notre Dame's going to play some predominantly rush-heavy teams. And you have to, that's where the national stats are a little bit deceiving, right? And Notre Dame's going to play Army, and that number is probably going to get skewed some more. But then Notre Dame will probably also hold Army under their average.
Right.
And that's what you want going. Like you said, you just did it for us, which I appreciate. But you've got to go game to game, and you have to see, okay, did Notre Dame hold them to below what they normally do? Did they force them to do some things that they're not comfortable doing? That's what makes the team, right? That's what makes it the way you want it. And look, you want to know the thing that I care about the most, it's scoring defense. And right now, Notre Dame is the number 5 team in the country in scoring defense. And their scoring defensive number went up by giving up 14.
Because they gave up 14.
Correct.
But that was also the fewest points Navy had scored all season was 34. So they held them 20 points. 20, and they had scored 50 a couple times. Yeah. So, I mean, they held them 20 points below the lowest they had previously scored.
Yeah, they're averaging like 44 points a game or something ridiculous like that. Notre Dame held them to 14, and so now they give up 12.1 yards. 12.1 points a game, and that puts them number 5 in the country right now. So, they're doing okay defensively, right? Even if they give up a bit of a bloated rushing number nationally, they're still holding teams under their average, and that's all I want as a fan, as an analyst.
It's funny to me, I saw this that Michael had. No one gave Notre Dame a chance to win the game. That was clear from the start. This was evident, the on-field interviews before the game with College Game Day. I went back. I didn't watch College Game Day live, but I had it recorded, and I went back because I wanted to see who – it was like Kyle Schwarber and one of the other regulars picked Navy. I think it was McAfee, because McAfee got caught up in the whole – He got he's like caught up in the whole Navy, for our country and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, really Desmond Howard, Kirk Herbstreit, Nick Saban, the 3 who actually matter, picked Notre Dame to win.
I think what he's referring to also is they did an on-field interview prior to the game with the Navy quarterback. And he's like warming up, and they did like a live interview with him. Look,
I saw part of that. I did.
Navy doesn't go undefeated this far into the season very often. You've got to play that card right now, and I have no problem with that whatsoever. With them talking to the Navy quarterback, that's fine. He's a really good player, and all of that. That's fine. No problem with that whatsoever.
Stymie's saying Herbie picked Navy. I
don't think so.
I'll come back tomorrow because I watched it a couple of times to make sure that because there were only 2 people who picked Navy. And they were in the middle.
It was McAfee and Schwarber.
Right.
And of course Schwarber's going to pick Navy. He went to IU. He doesn't like Notre Dame. Right? I mean, if you go to IU or Purdue, you generally don't like Notre Dame. They're the other in-state
and he's from Ohio as well.
Right. He wasn't going to pick Notre Dame. So of course he's going to pick Navy. And McAfee, don't listen to what he does.
Joel Klatt picked Navy.
That's true.
That's too bad because I actually, kind of respect Joel Klatt's opinion. I just don't know.
He said that Notre Dame was too banged up defensively to
defend Navy.
And that's the problem, Sean, is people.
And again, I'm not.
That's a surface analysis,
Navy, but it's like.
But that's a surface analysis. They're looking at the injuries, and if you look at the injury report for Notre Dame, there's a bunch of defensive guys that are down. Okay, got it. How about you look at their depth chart and see what they actually have that is going to be playing? That's the problem. You know what I'm saying? That's a surface level analysis by a national guy who doesn't follow the team that closely.
Right. And because he's never going to, they're never going to have the opportunity, like maybe the USC game. I don't know, because they've got that a few. But my point is they're not televising They're not televising enough Notre Dame games, so they're not as big an emphasis unless, the first game of the season, Texas A&M, for example. And I think even in that show, they didn't really touch on that game that much because the game was just never going to be on their network, So they don't spend as much, at least game day, 1, longer show, 2, they at least try to give you something from all the games that involve ranked team, a little bit more analysis. You might not agree with it all the time, but they're giving you a little bit deeper stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas Fox definitely prioritizes stuff that's going to be on Fox.
Yeah. The next chance that Notre Dame has of being on Fox is maybe the USC game. Maybe. It won't be a noon game, unfortunately, because that would be 9 a.m. Out there in La La Land, so that probably won't happen. If we're lucky,
I'd take 3:30 though.
I was going to say, if we're lucky, it's a 3:30 game, which I would be all for, obviously. So we'll wait and see what happens. We got about a month before we're going to have to figure that one out. But yeah, I don't put a whole lot of stock in what national people say. I don't care, to be perfectly honest with you. All I care about
has no impact on the actual outcome of the game. So
right. Exactly. What I care about is the one that's coming out in 8 days. That's the one I care about.
Right.
And they have annually been very good to Notre Dame in the past. So I expect nothing to change there.
They have. Something interesting that came up, I don't know if you caught this when you were watching the ESPN broadcast. Their sideline reporter, Molly McGrath, said during the broadcast, that Marcus Freeman plays clips from Notre Dame's loss to Northern Illinois for the team as motivation. So here's what Freeman said about that after the win.
I don't do it every day. But the most important thing is we can't lose the pain. That's what I want to make sure guys understand, is that you can't lose the pain. I don't want to lose the pain from that game, because at times we are motivated by fear, we don't want this to repeat itself. And so there's times I got to remind them of that pain so that we can make sure we don't forget it. We got to use that. And like I said, we're going to be grateful for it if we utilize it and we learn from the lessons that it's taught us. But when you have success, sometimes you forget about that pain of what NIU left in all of our hearts and our guts. And so there's moments that I want to reflect on that, and I don't want them to lose it. And that's kind of when I use it for motivation.
So what'd you think of that, Vince? I had heard kind of like this pop up a couple weeks ago, I think, but he obviously didn't go into nearly as much detail. What do you think about this little motivational tool that Marcus Freeman's got in his pocket here?
It's certainly an interesting way to go about doing things. I understand where he's coming from. You don't want this team, to get too high on their laurels and all of that kind of thing. I mean, look, since the Northern Illinois game, the offense, or at least Notre Dame's scoring, because there's been some defensive scores in there too, they're averaging over 42 points a game, right? And they're giving up, if my math is somewhat accurate, they're giving up like, I don't know, 13 points a game, something along those lines. Like, it's very easy when you rattle off 6 wins in a row and you're successful on both sides of the ball to get, your head in the clouds a little bit, and to see, the fact that Notre Dame is now ranked in the top 10, and, they're kind of back to where they need to be making a splash, and people are talking about them, and, all of these different things. Like, hey, fellas, remember what happened back in September? This was you too. Like, don't forget that this was you too. And so I like the strategy. I do it. Don't overdo it. You don't want to overdo it.
And that's what he said. He doesn't do it all the time. I would be curious to kind of know, like, when this happens, what the situation is, that kind of thing. I mean, look, you got to avoid complacency.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, and that's where you are. I don't know how much you needed that going into this game against Navy, because of the fact that they were at least ranked and undefeated. We talked about that last week. This Navy team should have had your attention for sure. You might need it against Florida State in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, they're going to be like
the way Florida State's playing right now.
One-win team coming into that game.
Yeah, I mean, it's working. So keep at it, I guess. Yeah. Keep using it.
Yeah, I mean, they might have 2 wins. I don't know. North Carolina's not great either, but and that's who they've got coming up this week. But they're 500. They got 3 more wins than Florida State does right now. So I guess you never know. But yeah, they just need to be reminded. And and somebody said, in Stymie says he needs to show himself the highlights of that. Yeah, it's for the coaches too. It's not just for the players. Everybody in the Goog needs to be reminded of what that felt like. Everybody. To the guy who tapes the ankles, to the person that hands out the Gatorade, to the kids that are on the field, to the coaches that are calling the plays. Everybody needs to be reminded of what that feels like, and you don't want to feel that again.
Yeah, because you do that one more time this season, and you're not going to the playoff.
100%.
Who knows what even bowl you end up in at that point, because the whole bowl structure is so much different right now. So here's just a little bit more on that, the lesson that Freeman took from that NIU loss.
It's the preparation. We had to learn. I go back and I look at that week of preparation, and I believe the physical part was efficient, but there's a mental preparation, a mindset you have to have on in every week. And that's, to me, what I've learned as the head coach, our program has learned, and we got to take in that game, is there's a mental approach. You got to understand, if you don't prepare the right way, you can lose to anybody, and I don't want to ever forget that.
There was a lot of the beating on the table again going on there. I don't know if you can kind of hear those little kind of pops. What do you think, Vince? The preparation is the biggest lesson.
He's not wrong. I mean, to prepare for Navy is a unique situation, obviously, and they obviously did a good job of preparing for it, both mentally and physically. I guess what I take away from that whole thing that he just said was Marcus Freeman generally and mostly says all the right things. He does. I think he says the right things all the time. I just personally need to see the follow through and, that kind of stuff on a continuous basis for him. And granted, it's been a great 7 weeks, since NIU. They've done well. It's hard to say they could have played a whole lot better over the last 7 weeks. And obviously, I'm including the bye week in there. And so he says all the right things. I just need him to do all the right things.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is the issue.
Exactly.
You're still learning in year 3 because you had this stuff blow up on you in both September and October of your first season. So why is this a thing again this year?
Correct. That's what I'm saying.
I appreciate the fact that he's, again, that they are learning from it and using it as a motivator and trying to keep their team from falling into that again. But where's the disconnect that got you from there to here, and it's still an issue 2 years later? That's 100%. What I don't get.
100%.
Don't get it at all.
Yeah,
because they look like they were completely past it last year. Maybe not completely. Like, I still go back and forth with, was Clemson a game that you were definitely supposed to win? I still think they had the talent, but I don't know.
Yeah.
All that went into that. They'd lost a couple games. And they ended up, 9-3 last year?
Yeah, I think that was and they got the 10th in the bowl game.
So, a couple of different things. Kevin Park, did Florida State bench their quarterback, or is he injured? I'm assuming you're talking about Uiagalelei. He is injured, and I saw something that he may miss the rest of the season. So, it's still, like, what happens with him is apparently totally up in the air right now. Hopefully, we will have Florida State reporter on next week to talk about that a little bit before the game. And yes, Michael Johnson, Florida State is a night game. It is the only home night game for Notre Dame this season.
Next one up, going to be a late night, is what it is.
I know. And that one, Florida State, Saturday night, women's basketball, we're at Purdue the next day.
Ooh.
7 p.m. tip-off.
Ooh, so you're driving down the day of.
Yeah, but that also means driving home and getting back somewhere
late. Well, hey, at least you get to snooze it up on the bus home. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, no, because I have to drive over myself. They're going over the night before.
Oh, they're going over on Saturday.
Yeah.
You can watch a game from the hotel. I won't tell anybody.
Well, this is my last chance for a home football game.
That's true.
So.
I've missed more this year than I've ever missed. Because of going on college visits and stuff with the kid. I've missed more home games than I've ever missed. And I may not be going to the Florida State game either. So we'll see.
Are you breaking news here?
No, I'll be watching. Don't worry about that. But there's talk of a college visit to the Indianapolis area. Okay. So we'll have to see how that transpires. But it's going to be a late night. I'm just not a fan of those night games. And this is going to be such. I mean, yeah, it's Florida State, and the logo on the helmet's a big deal and all of that stuff. But this has all the makings of being an absolute blowout, and I'm just not looking forward to it at all.
Do your job, Dario. Come on, do your job.
Which one is that?
I don't know.
I'll still be doing the post-game show. You don't have to worry about that. It'll still be an excessively late night.
Still up to the wee hours.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because I believe the game that we're going to go to is at 1 o'clock. In Indy, so I'll have time to get back and all that stuff. So
USMA keeping it positive. He says the playoff game is going to be a home game.
Now that I'm on, look, that's different though, right? Because that's a home game that you can get up for and get excited about. Because I believe that all of those games, except maybe one, are night games in that first round. So what do you think the odds of that Notre Dame is going to be in prime time? Pretty high,
pretty strong.
Yeah, pretty strong. no matter whether it's a home game or it's an away game or whatever, you can pretty much count on the fact that that game that's on the 20th or the 21st, I think there's two different dates, is going to be a home game. Or, I mean, excuse me, is going to be a night game. So,
Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
oh, is it time? Let's go, baby. Rapid fire time.
It is. We're here. Scale of 1 to 10. Your surprise level that Notre Dame stayed ahead of both Texas A&M and Indiana in both polls this week.
Like a 4. My surprise level wasn't that they stayed ahead of those two teams. My surprise level is that they jumped 4 spots. Like, that was my surprise level. The actual order of operations and things like that, I think, Brian and I kind of dug into it last night on the show and our kind of reaction to the AP poll and everything. I was much more surprised that they jumped to 8 after winning against Navy, and they actually dropped a spot last week after their win. Like, that was, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, oh, well, maybe people are starting to come around that, 6 games removed from Northern Illinois, that Notre Dame is actually probably a pretty good team. It took them 6 weeks to get there, but I think people are starting to come around, and maybe that's what ended up happening. And Brian made a good point that I hadn't really thought of. Last week, the AP voters thought that Navy was a ranked team. Like, they ranked them like that. That's so it's like almost speaking out of both sides of their mouth if they don't give Notre Dame credit for beating a ranked team that they ranked in the top 25. And so it's like, well, we kind of got to give them some credit now because we had that team ranked, And so the mantra of, well, it was just Navy kind of had to go by the wayside because they had them ranked. You know what I mean? So Notre Dame got the benefit of the doubt, I think, on that one as well.
I was a little surprised. I think I put mine, like at a 5, but I think that, one LSU plummeted. Like, they fell 8 spots in one poll and 9 spots in the other poll. So that helped Notre Dame out, obviously, and it helped everybody out. I did think that maybe kind of some of that stuff that we were talking about at the start of the show, well, this is a different A&M team, and they're the only undefeated team left in the SEC, like in terms of conference play, they're the only SEC team without a conference loss, I guess I should say. I thought that all those things and this kind of Indiana groundswell, because they just keep on winning, and they won with their backup quarterback. I thought that Indiana was going to pass up Notre Dame, but I do think that 2 things. One, yes, Notre Dame beating a ranked Navy team helped them. But I think now, because of what I was just talking about, the fact that Texas A&M is the only team in the SEC without a conference loss, that is like, as long as that remains true, Notre Dame's chances just go up every week that they win another game. Like, that is going to pull Notre Dame up. The longer Texas A&M
it's big
stays undefeated, that's going to give that's like just such a huge bullet point into the conversation that we had last week. It obviously, at this point in the season, greatly outweighs the bad loss that Notre Dame had. Now, that's at least to the AP and the coaches poll. Still going to be interesting to see what the college football playoff does in a week.
Well, and I think that CFP ranking that comes out, we're going to get a lot of these questions answered, as to how they're looking at certain things. What are they going to weigh more? The really, really bad loss that Notre Dame had, or their really good win against Texas A&M? They were a week separated from each other, right? So you can't be like, well, one was at the beginning of the season, one was, more recent. Like, they were 7 days apart from each other.
Exactly,
you know
7
what I mean?
days. Yeah.
Like, so, I mean, that was all kind of in the same time frame. And then you've got, obviously, the 6-7 weeks since then and what Notre Dame has been able to do and what Texas A&M has been able to do as well. So what are they going to weigh more, the wins or the losses? The strength of schedule, the beating of ranked teams, all of those different things are all going to come into play in this one. And we're going to see what this committee thinks about all of those things, I think, in the first ranking. Now, there'll be more clarity, obviously, as the weeks go on, but we're going to get a good idea of what they think of that Northern Illinois loss, I think, right away.
By the way, I texted you this yesterday. Next Tuesday,
I know,
November 5th, Election Day, the first college football playoff rankings come out and the NFL trade deadline all on the same day next week.
We'll not have a shortage of show content Tuesday and Wednesday.
Wow.
Because the ranking show obviously comes on after the show on Tuesday. So we'll have that to talk about on Wednesday. But the rest of it will all pretty much have been set in stone at that point, right? Well, the election probably won't be. What am I saying? That'll get dragged out for a few days, I'm sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many weeks is that going to take?
That's a different conversation and a different podcast, folks. But
that's exactly right.
But go vote. Do your civic duty and go vote.
Don't come into this chat this week or next with any of your nonsense, because I'm gonna blow you out.
Yeah, you'll be blocked. You'll be pancaked in a heartbeat. We're not doing the whole political. Not doing it. We ain't gonna do it. The only thing I'll say, as I said it again, go vote. Because if you don't vote, you can't bitch. All right. Yeah. But don't do that here either.
But this is for me, it's actually perfect, because like we won't get it during the show.
Correct.
I'm sure Brian will do his show right after our show ends. But the fact that we'll probably be able to end our show, go flip on ESPN, see what's going on with the college football playoff rankings, and that just gives us that much more reason that we don't have to watch any of the election nonsense.
Correct.
So that's right. Good, very good point, Raymond. So the playoff projections out this week have Notre Dame as the number 9 seed, playing number 8 Tennessee in the first round. I'm not sure exactly. You sent me this, so I'm not sure exactly where you got it. The winner would get number one Oregon in the first round.
Yes. So I sent that to you based on the AP poll. Strictly based on how the AP ranked it today, or yesterday, technically. This is how the bracket would be set up, right? So you take your 4 highest ranked conference champions, they're 1 through 4, and I put them in order of their AP ranking. And then you go back through, okay, who's left, and you just put them in order, right? It's a pretty simple exercise, right? Hold on. What was the exact question before I start answering?
What do you think about where Notre Dame is?
Okay,
right
got
now?
it.
The projections, we can obviously dig a little bit deeper, because there's been a lot of playoff talk on this show already.
I don't like that particular path, right? I said earlier that if you're a Notre Dame fan, that you should not be afraid of anybody, and I'm not afraid of anybody. But do I really want to go on the road, in that environment in game 1? Not really. And number 2, do I really want the number 1 team, whether it's Oregon or Georgia or whoever, in the second round? No, I don't. I think I would much rather have the opportunity to play the 3 or the 4, because that's going to be the ACC and the Big 12 in whatever order, it gets put in, right? The ACC and Big 12. I feel very confident against Miami or BYU. Yeah. Very confident against those 2 teams, right?
Me too.
I would love to host first round, and then I want one of those 2 teams in the second round, and then you're in the Final Four, and all bets are off. Let's see what happens. You know what I mean? So that's the path that I would like to see Notre Dame get. I don't necessarily like the one that would present itself today, so we'll see.
Yeah, 9's a little, 9's low, because that's the cutoff right there. If you're an 8 seed, 5 through 8, and you're going to get to host a first round playoff game. 9 through 12, and you're going to go on the road. So that's the first thing, is Notre Dame needs to make sure it is better than an 8. But again, things are trending in the right direction right now. So assuming that these 2 polls, the AP and the coaches poll, are an accurate representation of what might happen when the playoff rankings come out next week, you got to be feeling pretty good. Now, Notre Dame will have a bye, and you never know what's going to happen during the bye week. Go ahead.
Right. So Salty says, don't go too long into the road game discussion. Notre Dame is hosting that one according to their AP position. No, they're not, because the Big 12 champion right now is behind Notre Dame. So they would jump up into the top 4 as the 4th highest ranked conference champion.
Right.
And then that bumps down whoever is
everybody else
top 4. So then Notre Dame gets dropped a spot.
Well,
them at number 9.
Well, no, I was going to say, but there are also 2 Big Ten teams and a couple SEC. But yeah, I mean,
But
basically,
that one
you're
jump
right.
bumps everybody else down.
It just bumps everybody
Right.
down a seed. That's right.
Yeah. So that's why they are the 9 and not the 8, because right now the Big 12 champion is ranked behind Notre Dame.
And that's, again, it's something new to the system. It used to be just the 4 teams, and you didn't have to worry about this. Well, you got to take into account conference champions and all that. You're not just seeding 1 through 12. That's gonna so Notre Dame almost needs to be at least 1 spot higher than what they are to feel regardless of where they are in the ranking, to feel confident in
and hosting
what their seed ends up being. Yeah, because of those things.
Absolutely. And look, some of the teams above them are going to knock each other off, and some things are going to happen. I feel fairly comfortable that Notre Dame will rise up a little bit. I don't know, again, depending on what happens ahead of them, I don't know that they'll rise up a whole lot, but they definitely want to be out of that 8-9 game, in my opinion. That's not where you want to be. You don't want to be in the 8-9 game, and you want to host. So I think the goal is 5 or 6, but I don't know that they're going to have the opportunity to do that. I don't.
So Nick wants to know what number seed they need to be in the initial ranking for you to be more confident.
In the initial ranking? Shoot. As long as
the initial ranking, I think they can be right where they are right now, 8 or 9.
100%. Yeah,
you're fine, because there's still a month left to go.
Yeah, 100%. I'd feel really good about that. 8. I was ecstatic that Notre Dame was 8 in the AP poll this week. So if they're 8 in the college football playoff ranking, I think that's definitely fine. Because again, I think there is going to be at least a modicum amount of chaos up top, which is going to drop some people. And I think Notre Dame will benefit from that. And again, this is obviously all assuming Notre Dame continues to win. That's the be all end all of it. Now, the final ranking, I would like Notre Dame to be 5 or 6. That would be ideal, because then you're going to get the 3 or the 4 of the top 4. And again, like I said, I would feel very happy against the ACC champ or the Big 12 champ.
Yeah, and the other thing, and this is kind of what you and I were talking about before the show started here tonight, and this is what we were kind of debating last week, is these other conferences, Big 12, ACC, when you look at the way the schedules have laid out, not everybody is playing everybody in there.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's the same in the Big 10 and the SEC as well, but it's going to be really dramatic in the Big 12 as an example, because Iowa State and BYU won't play each other potentially before the Big 12 championship game. And Colorado right now, even though Colorado has a non-conference loss and a conference loss, like if Kansas State beats Iowa State at the end of the season and Colorado keeps winning out, Colorado doesn't play either one of them, so there's I don't think you're going to have to worry about Colorado stealing, an at-large bid, but if Colorado would work themselves into the conference championship game and steal a bid, I mean, so there's just so many weird factors with these big conferences now, because they're so big and not everybody's playing each other.
If things hold the way they are, the Big 12 could be a 1 or a 2 bid league right now. The problem would be if a team like Colorado gets into the championship, wins it, then that's a bid stolen, in my opinion. Now, I don't know that they would still put in 3 Big 12 teams. I don't see that happening.
No.
But you're guaranteed to get 2 in at that point, I think. And that could be a bid stolen from somebody like Notre Dame, depending on how things shake out in the other leagues and how the ACC right now, in my opinion, the ACC, the Big 12, I think one of them is going to be a 1 bid league and one of them is going to be 2. I don't know which one, because Clemson and Miami could get in. You could get 2 from the Big 12. I just don't think they'll both get 2 in. I don't see that happening. So in my opinion, it's going to be one's going to get 2, one's going to get 1. And best case scenario, if you're a Notre Dame fan, both of those leagues just get the champion in, and that's it. That could potentially happen depending on how things shake out and Like if Miami's undefeated and BYU's undefeated, they're in, and I think that might be it.
Well, and what's crazy is Pittsburgh is still undefeated. They're only ranked 18th.
Their
right
schedule's terrible.
And I know, and that's the thing is
That's
like
why.
they've got SMU this week,
which could be their first loss, by the way.
Yeah, and then they've got Clemson in a
Right.
couple of weeks. So like they do actually have to play Clemson. So one of those two teams is gonna have at least one conference loss here pretty
Right.
soon. So that could help take care of some of that as well. But like the whole
Pittsburgh
Miami
is like
thing,
I'm not saying they're smoke and mirrors yet, because they haven't played anybody really good. But right now they're undefeated. I mean, I think they're the lowest ranked undefeated team off the top of my head, and rightfully so. Well, I shouldn't say that. Army is, but they also haven't played anybody either. So
in terms of Power 4,
right,
yeah, lowest rated. All right, so Billy Schrauth came back Saturday. Started at left guard on the offensive line. Here's Marcus Freeman.
We had a thought on Tuesday, but he wasn't doing everything. Right, he did a lot of the scouted reps, but as long as his body was going to be able to give us the reps we needed, we were going to plan on using him as our left guard. But that was still to be determined based off Tuesday, Wednesday, and ultimately Friday. It's great to have him back. He's a heck of a player. We felt like this is what was best for this game, based off, some of the previous evidence that we had. And we said, listen, that's what we think is best for this offensive line and this unit, is to put Billy at left guard and keep Rocco in at right. Sam has done a great job in his preparation. He's a selfless individual, and he's ready to go when his number is going to be called. But at the end of the day, each week your role is determined by the coaches to help us achieve the outcome that we wanted. Every week your role can change, but this is the role we needed for those offensive.
You remember he said early last week, basically last Monday, that Billy Schrauth was potentially going to be available, and he ends up starting at left guard. How important do you think that is for the Irish going forward, Vince?
Oh, it's massively important. It is massively important. The game was called differently by Mike Denbrock because Billy Schrauth was in the lineup. Plain and simple. You saw Anthony Knapp had his best game up to this point. I don't think that's a coincidence with who is playing next to him. The fact that the coaching staff made the decision to put Billy at left guard and not in his spot that he started at in the beginning of the season at right guard, I think was an inspired decision, and thank God they made it. Like that's where I'm at. Like, that's the right decision. It's what we all wanted them to do, but I was not confident that they were going to do that, right? And so starting him at left, keeping Rocco at right, I think was absolutely the right decision. And again, it's no coincidence that Anthony Knapp had his best game playing next to Billy Schrauth.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it felt like they were playing a little bit of diplomacy, just like in terms of, okay, Sam Pendleton, you're coming back out of the lineup now, all that kind of thing. But let's just be honest with when you've got Rocco Spindler on one side and Billy Schrauth on the other side. I mean, it should have been
it should have been both starting guards in the first place at the beginning of the season.
Sure feels like it. Just watching those guys.
I mean, that's who should have been started. The problem from a coaching standpoint that they ran into was they thought Charles Jagasaw was going to be the starting left tackle, and they could have Sam Pendleton at left guard because he's really good. He could bring along Sam and everything would be fine, right? Well, Jagasaw went down in the first week of fall camp. At that point right there, that's when you needed to move Pendleton over to right guard and you needed to move Billy back over to left, because it was very obvious early on from what we're understanding, talking to coaches and stuff, it was very obvious that Anthony Knapp was going to be starting at left tackle. Like, it wasn't going to be Tosh Baker. It was going to be Anthony Knapp. When you knew you were going to start a true freshman over there, starting a redshirt freshman next to him,
you needed more experience.
That was never going to be a good decision. You know what I mean? And then you've got Rocco on the bench. Like that, that never computed for me. And they got to it now in week 8 in a very convoluted manner. But they finally got there, Sean. Like, I don't know.
That's what's crazy. I mean, obviously the injury kept Schrauth out for as long as it did after he started the season. But the fact that it took to get here in game 8,
Man,
to have what I think to most people, just the casual observer, are your two best guards finally starting next to each other is kind of crazy. But I'm just glad that that's where they're at right now.
And look, Sam Pendleton did the best that he could, man, but he's kind of swimming upstream, man. He's like a trout. You know what I mean? So thank goodness they got it figured out eventually. And now with the way that the offensive line is constructed, I think they can now be a good offensive line. They have the ability now to be a good offensive line. Not elite, not amazing, but good.
But still really good.
But good, yes, exactly. If they continue to progress from what they did on Saturday, they could be a good offensive line. And you can win with a good offensive line considering what is around them. And like I said, Mike Denbrock called a different type of game on Saturday than he did, because we were praising Mike Denbrock a week ago for how he called that game. It was quick throws, getting the ball out quickly because they clearly didn't trust the offensive line and a lot of the things that they were doing, right? This time, they went a little bit more max protect at times. They were calling some longer routes, some long over routes, some down the field routes. They trusted the offensive line in this regard. And then Riley Leonard has his best game in the pocket. His pocket movement was good. His time in the pocket was good. Like, all of those things were good because now there's a newfound trust in the offensive line, and there's a one-guy difference. Now, one guy is possibly your best offensive lineman going into the season, and now he's back. So,
right.
Makes a big deal. Makes a big difference, I mean.
Yep, for sure. All right, so Riley Leonard asked after the game what changed for him after some ups and downs early in the season.
It's a great question. I didn't know that stat. I really don't look at the statistics too much, but I think a lot of factors come into play there. I'll start with everybody that's been around me. You look at guys like Sam Hartman, who gave me a call and really spoke to me about the opportunities that we had being quarterbacks at Notre Dame. You look at Tyler Buckner, who came back here. Going out to eat with him and having his perspective on everything, like, really helped me out a lot. And he doesn't get enough credit. I mean, he put so much into this program now and has really been a big help to me. Every single teammate that's held me accountable, not only on the football field, but when it comes to my faith as well. Obviously, Notre Dame is a very spiritual place, and I think, allowing Jesus to come into my life and change the way that I, walk into a football game has really helped me out a lot. I think I was hesitant and put a lot of pressure on myself, but me and Coach Freeman were talking about it one time, and everybody goes into games. I feel like I certainly did the first couple of weeks thinking, what if I mess up? What if this happens? At the end of the day, if I go into a game thinking even if everything falls down and we hit rock bottom, my Lord and Savior is always going to be there for me. Nothing's going to change with that. So that's been the biggest thing. And long answer, but there's been a lot of things that have helped me out.
He wanted to go there for a while, Vince. He got on a little bit of a roll.
Yeah, he did.
There. What'd you think?
Well, he's out. He speaks from the heart. I think we can all agree on that. Sometimes a little too much. But I think it's very genuine.
We agree on that too much, or he speaks from the heart too much?
Sometimes he speaks from the heart too much.
Okay.
but I think it comes from a genuine place, right? And if you're just watching him play football and then you get this explanation, it kind of makes sense. Like, he looks more relaxed. He looks like he is not worried about the outcome. You know what I mean? No, he's still dialed in and he's still doing his thing, and he's still a really good football player, but he just looks so much more relaxed when he's out there. He looks like he's having fun. And yeah, winning is fun, and they're winning by a lot the last 6 games. There's no doubt about that. But I think that I think that just for whatever reason, the pressure is off. And maybe it has something to do with that NIU loss. Maybe it has to do with these secret lunches that him and Freeman have. I don't know. But the pressure appears to be off.
Sundays with Freeman, sessions or
right. There's gonna be a book written at some point. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, I just like, one, he opened up with, he doesn't care about stats, and I can't remember the exact stats. He might have like rattled off, what it's looked like over the last 6 games or something like that. But look, against the 3 ranked teams that they have played, 4 touchdown passes. 2 rushing touchdowns, almost 200 rushing yards. He's got 6 total touchdowns in those 3 games against the ranked teams. And I mean, like during the win streak, 8 touchdown passes, 10 touchdown runs, and he's run for almost 460 yards. He's obviously, something has changed. And like you just listen to that explanation of the whole thing, he definitely just seems like his headspace is a lot different right now than it was at the start of the season. I'm not even saying it was in a bad place at the start of the season, but
it's
just with everything, just with everything that comes with being at Notre Dame, and the fact that he can go out and talk to Sam Hartman. And like, you remember Hartman, when Leonard got hurt in the Notre Dame Duke game last year, Hartman was waiting for him to come out of the injury tent there at the end of the game and stuff like that. And then he talks about Tyler Buchner, and that's I don't even think we think about that, because all we think about when we think about Tyler Buchner is sort of the tangible skill set that he potentially brings. But like, this is a guy who was also the starting quarterback at Notre Dame. There's nobody else on the roster who can say that. And so like, that's another resource for Riley Leonard.
Steve Angeli started the bowl game. Come on, man.
Oh, that's right.
Jeez. You don't ever give him any respect.
You're right.
After I heard that quote,
you're right.
After I heard that quote, I immediately thought about, okay, I'm going to put myself in Riley Leonard's shoes, right? He comes in January. He has to sit with 9 months of expectations, of talk, right? And that it's from us, from fans, from the team, from the coaches, like 9 months without being able to show anything because he got hurt in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, okay, now it's the season. Go be this guy. That's a lot of pressure. That's a ton of pressure. And you can say maybe he didn't handle it very well, or whatever route you want to go on. And I don't really care. But like, and I'm not saying you specifically, I'm saying you, metaphorically, like whatever route you want to go on with why he had all the pressure on him and why he didn't necessarily play as well, that's gone. Like, you can visibly see that the pressure is gone. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason it is for him, I don't care whether it's your Lord and Savior is lifting you up, whether your mom makes you a bracelet, whether you're eating PB&J after I don't care. But the pressure is off, and he's playing the best football he's played all year.
That's it.
That's all I care about. That's it.
Yes. That's it. Josh, I never really thought about this, but the guy is from Fairhope, Alabama.
From Alabama.
He doesn't talk with a Southern accent at all. That's the first time I ever really thought about that. You're right. Point. Why is there no accent?
That's a great point. That's a great point.
Going back to the Shrouth thing, do you think Spindler and Shrouth are the guards going forward? That's what Michael was asking. I forgot to throw this one in there.
Barring injury, absolutely. That's the best chance that you have of having a good offensive line.
I think so too.
Father David.
I think
Father David's good people.
He is. He is.
And he's not wrong. Father David, you are absolutely not wrong. And when you find that spot, then you are automatically in a good place. And I think that's fantastic. Like I said, if that's what it is for him, that's awesome. I don't care, though. Why? I just want him to play good football. As a person, I care. But as a football player, whatever gets you there, man. Like, whatever gets you a seat at the table.
Father David was screenshotting tweets of Jesse and I back to back. During Cowboys-Niners last night.
I don't even know how that game ended. Is that wrong? I did not come prepared. But judging by that side.
That answers the question that I'm about to ask you. Did you know that yesterday, by the way, was National Tight Ends Day?
No, I had no idea yesterday was that day. No.
I didn't either until I turned on Cowboys 49ers and had it beaten over it was basically they talked about National Tight Ends Day just a little bit less than ESPN talked about 63% Notre Dame college football playoff chances a week ago in the Georgia Tech game. It was just National Tight Ends Day, National Tight Ends Day, National Tight Ends Day.
Okay. I mean, the 49ers have a really good tight end, obviously, in Kittle.
And Kittle apparently created this hallmark holiday.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
And why did he pick the 27th of October?
I have no idea. I was just tired of it. I was over it because I was just generally boiling for most of the game.
Well, I'm looking at the box score, or at least the scoring by quarter, and I can understand why you might have been a little upset. That third quarter was rough.
Very rough.
Wow.
Yes.
Sorry. Hey, at least your team didn't have it in the bag and then just tip the ball to the
you
other
want to talk
team.
about that? You want to talk about that?
Gosh.
That's
Wow.
on the list.
Wow.
One of the most insane endings I have ever seen. And of course, my daughter, Bailey, loves your stupid Bears. And so I have to sit there and watch Bears games with her. And it was an ugly game for most of the day. And then they finally take the lead at the end. And I'm like, they're actually going to win this thing. There's 23 seconds left or whatever it was.
Yep. And they have to score a touchdown. Commanders have to score a touchdown. They're down by 4.
Yeah. So Jaden Daniels, 52-yard Hail Mary, deflects into Noah Brown, former Cowboy receiver, by the way, into his hands with no time on the clock in the end zone. Tyreek Stevenson, Bears defensive back, is out there taunting the crowd, and then he gets over, to the play late, and he tips the ball into Brown's hands. Is that it? Is that your answer? Cut him. He did apologize on Twitter.
I don't care. Cut him. Cut him. I think I'm more upset about the fact that he's taunting fans with the play occurring behind him. Like the play had started. Right. And he's taunting fans.
He's like, oh, I better get over here. No. I can actually do my job.
Bye. I'm sorry. A DB is a dime a dozen. You're gone. Look, they cut kickers for less. All right. I'm not bringing it back to a kicker, but they cut kickers for less. Get him out. I'm sorry. That's the last play as a Bear. You're done.
I mean, you're late. You tip the ball up in the air as opposed to trying to spike it down. Like, what are you even doing?
Sean, like
everything that he could have done wrong, he did wrong.
Here's the thing. And no, you don't fire the coaches. The coaches had nothing to do with him tipping it straight up in the air. Every football coach worth his salt says, knock it down, knock it down, knock it down. That's not a coach's fault. Now, if you want to fire the coaches for the fact that the offense was completely inept for 3.5 quarters, that's fine. Because they were terrible. Like the offense was terrible. They're lucky that the defense is good and they kept the Commanders out of the end zone because the Commanders are going up and down the field in between the 20s without much of a problem. And they had to kick a bunch of field goals. And that's the only reason that the Bears were in this game. But I will also say, why in God's green earth are you handing the ball to an offensive lineman when you're trying to score your first touchdown of the game? They're lucky they got the ball back with another opportunity to score a touchdown.
I know.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Like, if I'm Caleb Williams, not only am I changing the play at the line of scrimmage, like I'm not handing the ball to a guard or whatever the heck offensive line position he plays. I'm not doing it, but it wasn't even a good handoff.
I mean, I would fake it to him and just go ISO and just follow his big butt into the end zone. Yeah.
All you need is a touchdown there. It was like 1st and goal. Why are you trying to be cute? I was livid
because they're the Bears, Vince.
I know.
You should know this better than me. They're the Bears.
And I don't even get all that. It worked up about the NFL. Like, this was just bad football, period. And I just happened to be able to have the time to watch this game, and it was awful. Like, the Bears had like 30 yards passing, I think, going into the third quarter. Something ridiculous. It was awful.
in defense of them, one, it is a rookie quarterback, even if it was the number 1 overall draft pick. I think Washington's going to win the East this year. I think they're going to finish. I think they're going to beat it's not going to be my team. They're not going to win it, and that's another thing altogether, because we've got a completely complacent coach who should have been fired after last year.
Well, true.
Jerry Jones kept Dan Quinn, from becoming an NFL head coach for 2 consecutive off seasons. Then he finally gives up on him because of the playoff collapse against the Packers last year. And so after holding on to him for 2 years, he lets him go into the division, and they've got the best looking team in the NFC East.
Look, and who do they have at quarterback?
And their defense is good.
Who do they have at quarterback?
Jaden Daniels,
who is a rookie.
It's true.
He's a rookie too.
It's true.
So the whole rookie quarterback thing doesn't fly in this particular game. Just saying.
Maybe Jaden Daniels is just better than Caleb Williams.
I don't think that's even a question.
I don't either.
So, he's over there getting wrapped up, like in between series, and like he's all injured and everything else. And then
he was injured last week. There was, question about whether or not
uncorks a 60-yard bomb to win the game. Like, that was just ugly. It was ugly. It was ugly.
It's time he says North could send 3 teams to the playoff and the Bears still won't make it. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, if you're the Bears, you had this game won, and your schedule is going to get tougher now because now they got to start playing the division. I think they might even play the 49ers in this stretch coming up here pretty soon. So,
yeah, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. It's still Notre Dame season. That's what it is right now. It's just the Bears give me something to do on Sundays.
So this whole Mike Elko thing, there is an update to this, by the way. But after beating LSU Saturday, Texas A&M head coach Mike Elko had this to say, quote, "This is a real program. It's not fake. It's not a politician running this program, talking fast and BSing everybody. This is a real program. And for all the recruits out there, this is a real place," end quote, from Mike Elko. So all the speculation was he talking about Jimbo Fisher? Was he talking about Brian Kelly? I mean, he's worked for both of them. And of course, he just coached against Kelly. At his press conference today,
he walked
Elko
it back, didn't he?
Came out. Well, he didn't walk it back. He just said, look, I wasn't talking about anyone in particular. And he did say, I was not talking about Jimbo Fisher. The whole got a lot of respect for him, worked for him. He gave me an opportunity, yada, yada, yada. So what do you think? Do you think he was actually just – go ahead.
Lies. He's just walking it back because he's trying to save a little face. I guarantee you when he said those things in the post-game show, he had a little visual of BK and Jimbo both dancing around in his forefront right here, just dancing around because here's why I think that. He used the word politician, number one. That is BK start to finish.
I mean, he started as like he was a politician before he was a coach.
And that's why, right? Like that's not even necessarily a negative thing to say about Brian Kelly. It's a fact. So when he says politician, he's talking about Brian Kelly. I'm sorry. He's talking about Brian Kelly. The other stuff about, running a real program and all of that, that's Jimbo Fisher. Like, so I think he's talking about both guys. Because look, Brian Kelly does run a good program. I think.
Sure.
I think as Notre Dame fans, we at least.
But he's also a BS and fast talking politician, right?
Exactly. This is what I'm saying. So that's why he's talking about both guys. I don't think Jimbo runs a very good program, and I think
he didn't. He obviously didn't. That's why Elko's the coach did. Yeah.
So I think he's talking about both of them. I really do. I think he's talking about both of them.
That's what I think. And that's what we were going to kind of, was he talking about one? Was he talking about the other? Was he talking about both? And then he came out and tried to reel it back.
Yeah.
And I think he was talking about both as well. Because, I mean, he had just been out there face to face with Brian Kelly. And, just the whole thing about, we run a program and put the program together. The culture is obviously a lot different there under Mike Elko than it was under Jimbo Fisher. And he had to have been. He had to have been.
Yeah, I mean, and as Salty says, politician is a very specific word and not normally used by a coach in a post-game comment.
Right.
It's a very that felt pointed to me. Like when he said politician, that was like, BK, it's you. Sorry.
I can't disagree with that at all.
Yeah. And by the way, I love it. That's some serious trolling right there in the post-game show, and I'm here for it.
Even if he did, and he never said a name either. So all he had to do was go back today and take back.
I mean, look, and it's also a great opportunity to get up on your pulpit and talk to recruits. That's a great opportunity. You just won a huge game, and this is your chance because he does compete for recruits against LSU specifically, right? And so why would you not? Yeah. Why would you not take this opportunity to say these things to recruit? I mean, it was absolutely directed at the recruits. I think that is actually very, very smart. So Mike Elko is going to be a very tough out moving forward at Texas A&M. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
Yep. And then they're coming to Notre Dame Stadium next year.
Absolutely. I'm actually very thankful that it's not game one of the season because it's in the middle of September. So they're going to have some games to kind of get some things figured out. But look, Mike Elko and Texas A&M are going to be legit, and they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. But so is Notre Dame. So it's going to be a good game.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be a heavyweight type game.
Yeah, 100%. Like, look at what the offensive line has the potential of being next year with all the talent that I mean, look, everybody's coming back, and then you're going to get some guys back from injury. Potentially, you're either going to have CJ Carr or Kenny Minchie at the helm. You're going to have Jeremiah Love still in the backfield. Like, you're going to have talent all over the place, both offensively and defensively. Look how young the defense is. Like, it's going to be a heavyweight bout, and I'm here for it. I'm excited. Whatever school Dylan goes to next year, they better not have a game that weekend. And if they do, I'm mailing it in. I'm going to have to watch on TV. It's not going to happen.
So when Dodgers first baseman Freddie Freeman ended Friday's Game 1 of the World Series with his walk-off grand slam, Fox announcer Joe Davis copied Vin Scully's iconic "She is gone" call from Game 1 of the 1988 World Series when Kirk Gibson hit the walk-off home run. So my question to you, was Davis's call a ripoff or an appropriate sampling of Mr. Vin Scully?
I'm interested to see where you go with this because play-by-play is your dish. To me, come up with your own thing. That's where I'm at. Come up with your own thing, man. I be original, ring the bell, come up with your own thing. I think it's a rip.
I generally agree with the come up with your own thing, but I loved the homage because
all right.
Because there's so many layers to this whole thing. Not only, okay, you've got Vin Scully, Kirk Gibson, Game 1, 1988. The balls were hit to the same field. They were both hit out into the right field grandstand, same general area. You've got two left-handed batters. Both of these guys are injured. Both obviously are Los Angeles Dodgers. Joe Davis essentially was the understudy to Vin Scully. He is also, in addition to being the network TV guy, he is also the LA Dodgers TV guy, just like Vin Scully was forever. So I did love that in the middle of his call, "She is gone" came out of his mouth. I thought it was a very appropriate, very, tip of the cap to the old master, Vin Scully. I think that's what it was. And again, both of them Game 1 of the World Series, both of them walk-off home runs. Both of these guys, Gibson was a little bit more injured, but Freddie Freeman has been, going through his own injury with his ankle and all this stuff. So I thought it was a very nice homage that Joe Davis gave to Vin Scully.
So you're nicer than I am. This is
you're
not
a ripoff. You're a sham.
You're a sham, Jerry. You're much nicer than I am. That's been asked and answered many times. So I'm not surprised.
By the way, Salty says, Vince, did you know Trevor is stealing your 100% trademark phrase?
Well, imitation is the most sincerest form of flattery, Jim. That's where I'm at with that.
I like that. All right. Well, I think that does it. I think that's it. We got it all.
All right.
USMA agrees with me, by the way. He says an ode to Scully. So,
all right. See, you guys are all nicer than me. It's okay.
I mean, we all knew that.
Right? I guess we did.
Grumpy old man in the sea, Vince DeDario.
I had a cavity filled this morning. It's been a rough day for me. It's been a rough day.
I feel for you. Upper, lower, where?
Upper front, one of my beavers right here in the front.
Oh man.
Yeah, so it's weird. It's not like the normal ones where they're right in the front. So yeah, I had all kinds of issues today.
Has your face been numb all day?
Well, the problem was it became unnumb very quickly, and then my whole front of my face hurt for hours. So I was a big baby. I was curled up on the couch. I can't help you with anything.
Yeah. I think my dentist because I told him because I hadn't been to a dentist in years. And so when I went to this dentist, I told him, I said, look, I was traumatized as a kid. That's why I haven't been to the dentist in a long time. And he loads my mouth up every time I go. So it takes hours for my Novocaine to wear off. So.
Oh man. It's so funny because I'm such a baby. I'm always afraid of the big needle, that they have to get in there and everything. And I have my eyes closed and I'm like tense. I'm gripping like the handles of the chair and like I am tense. And it's like, the little assistant girl, she's got to be what, like 22 years old. And she's like,
assistant girl.
She's like patting my shoulder and she's like, it's going to be okay. And I'm like, it was pretty embarrassing.
I think the name you're looking for is dental hygienist.
I'm sure it is. My point is, she's like half my age. Like that's the point. And she's like trying to calm me down.
She's soothing you, calming you down.
That was the only point that I was making. She went to college and the whole deal. Like she's a wonderful professional and all of that. But like the fact that she could be my own child and she's like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Oh, I wish I could have been there for that.
And of course I didn't feel anything. You know what I mean? Like I was totally just freaked out for no reason.
Did I ever tell you this story about my son? He is afraid of the needle so much that the last time he had a tooth filled, he refused the Novocaine.
What?
And just let them drill on his raw tooth.
Oh,
yes.
Jesse. What is wrong with you?
I know.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And he was fine.
Well, I'm sure it's like women who give natural childbirth. Like,
yeah,
okay. I mean, this is 2024. They got drugs for that. Like, it's. Oh, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's not quite Ronnie Lott, like chopping off his pinky when he got it stuck in his face mask or whatever. But my son is a little bit nuts. I will have to say that.
Gosh, there's no chance. There's no chance. I'll go through the pain or the fear of the needle in order to not feel the pain of the procedure.
I know.
You know what I mean?
It's just like close your eyes.
Oh yeah, my eyes were like.
That's how I am on roller coasters. Like when we used to take the kids to amusement parks because, Daredevil and all that stuff, and of course, his mom wouldn't get on the roller coasters with when he was 8 years old. So Dad had to, and I'm just as afraid of it as anybody. So I would just sit there, eyes closed the whole time, and just feel the loops. And seriously, I would never open my eyes, man.
I would love. Closed. I think keeping your eyes closed might be worse on a roller coaster because you don't know what's coming.
And that's what was good about it.
That's why Space Mountain is like the
freakiest,
ride out there because it's indoors in the dark.
Yeah, heights and loops and all that stuff.
Not for you.
Not a big fan.
I would have killed to see some of those pictures that get taken while you're on those rides. Fantastic.
All right, well, that's going to do it for tonight. Appreciate you being here tonight. As always, special guest coming up on tomorrow's show.
Oh, I think I saw this.
Hannah Hidalgo will join us. We've got a women's basketball
right.
game coming up this week. Yep.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, it's Wednesday, isn't it?
It is. Exhibition game Wednesday. First regular season game, season opener 1 week from tonight.
Wow.
I know. Tell me about it.
Yeah, it just means more work for me. That's all that means.
True. All right, hit the like button before you leave, and we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.